Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by The Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Today's episode is called From Talented to Terrible, Find Success Teaching Every Student. We'll talk about what to do with our worst students, our best students, and everyone in between. Abby Shukai will join us later to talk about successful strategies for our classroom and why our students need an authentic audience for their work in order to help them find success, persevere, and continue to create. Before we get started today, I wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Art of Ed's online course, Assessment in Art Education. I actually just taught this class last month, and I love it. If you want to learn more about assessing the arts, this is a class for you to consider. We cover formative assessment, student growth, authentic assessment, and a lot more. And you're able to develop a huge variety of different assessments that you can take back and use immediately in your classroom. Class is worth 3 credits and runs 5 weeks. All classes start on the first of each month, and you can learn more by going to theartofed.com and clicking on the Classes tab. Now let's get on to the show. Some teachers really enjoy working with our most talented students. We can help them create great work and accomplish some wonderful things. Other teachers enjoy working with struggling students. We love to see growth and their accomplishments even more worthwhile when they've persevered to get there. But in either case, we have some extra responsibility if our students are going to be successful. Before we get into all of that, though, I want to bring up this point. It is vital, above all else, to give our students the attention they both need and deserve. One of the things that really brought this home to me is a documentary that I watched called Painting in the Dark by Adam Westbrook, which deals with the idea of whether we still create when no one is watching. Do we persevere if there's no audience? Because nobody wants to make art in a vacuum. Van Gogh, for example, painted for 9 years for an audience of exactly one person, his brother Theo. Hey, imagine the art you make is only ever going to be seen by a single person. Hey, are you still going to create? Are you still going to persevere? Are you still going to make art? Hey, but if you think about it, we do that to our worst students. We hang up the best work, but as for the worst, we see it as the teacher, we give it back to our student, and who knows where it goes from there. Hey, if we're the only one that looks at it, does that encourage your kids to keep working or to keep creating? Or does that confidence and persistence we want to build begin to slip away? It's something we need to consider when we talk about the strategies that we use with our students. Now, to start thinking about some of those strategies, I want to talk about an article I wrote last year called I Have the Next Picasso in My Art Room, Now What? And basically what we're looking at there is your kids that are incredibly gifted or incredibly talented in the arts. What do you do with them? And basically it comes down to continuing to give them opportunities that challenge them. And one of the points I bring up in the article was talking about how a lot of strategies that regular education teachers use, classroom teachers use, or even gifted teachers use, also apply to those kids in the art room. Okay? A lot of those same strategies will work. Like acceleration, for example. You can let kids move through your curriculum at a little bit faster pace, allowing them to skip what they already know. Okay? And as a teacher, it would be your job to kind of match your teaching to what your gifted student is interested in and what they're ready for and what they're motivated to do. Okay? You can also compact by, letting kids reduce the amount of repetition they need. Okay? They don't need exercises to develop the skills that they already have. You can be looking for enrichment activities, things they can do at home, drawing challenges, all of that. It doesn't need to be more work, okay, but you want to give them the opportunity to develop skills and develop concepts in which they're interested in. Okay, and as far as students who are struggling, it's kind of the same thing. We need to find the right level for that challenge, whether we're scaffolding, helping develop skills, or just working one-on-one with them to help develop what they need. Okay, it's paramount that we give them the opportunity to meet that challenge. And along the way, I've found it's really important to celebrate every success because kids who are struggling, they need to persevere. And if you can give them that motivation, okay, by celebrating even the smallest things that they're doing right, those smallest building blocks that you can work with, okay, they're going to be much more inclined to work harder when the time comes. Okay? And the other thing is, you need to still make sure those kids who are struggling have work that's enjoyable for them. Okay? Not everything has to be about skills. Okay? You can do abstract work. You can do non-objective work, expressive work, cartooning. Find things that are fun. Okay? Find that balance so that you're not always setting kids up for a struggle. Let art be enjoyable. And I'm also kind of interested in talking about students who are both talented and terrible, but we're going to hold that thought for just a second because it's time to bring on our guest. My guest is an AOE writer, an award-winning blogger, a former elementary and current middle school art teacher, and the tie-dye champion of North America. Abby Shukai, how are you?
I'm doing pretty awesome. I just finished up a batch of tie-dye tonight. I saw the sun today, so I'd say it's a top 10 day for sure.
There you go. Life is good. All right. So you've been writing for AOE for all of about 2 months now. How's that going for you? And do you have, I guess, a favorite article so far that you think everybody needs to check out?
Well, so far so good. I'm amazed at all the behind the scenes things that are happening, and I'm just, really excited to be part of such an innovative resource for art teachers. But as far as my article that I've written so far, kind of my first one, I think, is about the props in the art room.
Yeah.
That one was one of those. I took a lap around my classroom and I looked at all the weird stuff I had, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to narrow this down? So,
Yeah.
we all got weird stuff. So that was kind of a fun one.
Yeah, that's a cool. I think that was a good one that a lot of people can relate to. And the other one that I really liked was the one you had about incorporating movement into your classroom, because I think that's something that a lot of teachers need to do more of.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, but anyway, we need to get to the subject at hand, our students who are talented and terrible. And I talked in the introduction of the show about a documentary that I watched called Painting in the Dark. And, a lot of it is about sort of the public response to our artwork, how we search for that public response. And I have one question for you, but I kind of want you to look at it from a couple different angles, both in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis, but then also as far as social media goes, because I know you do a lot of that. How important is it for kids to be recognized for what they do, recognized for their artwork?
Well, whether it's in the classroom or from social media, I think student recognition in the art room is huge. And looking at the classroom first, I think students are so impressionable and they're constantly seeking peer approval that, showcasing and displaying their work, not for just the art students to see, but, an entire school, the teachers, that kind of provides a sense of accomplishment for them. And so something that I do personally is no matter the project, I happen to have the space, but I display every single student's artwork, even in my 7th and 8th graders. That's something
that's awesome.
You typically only think of like maybe doing in elementary school. But, and so as a result of that, I have levels of, that vary as far as quality of work.
Right.
But, it provides an opportunity for everybody to see it. And, I can see people walking by the display case and, they ask a question or they stop and they want to know more about it and they'll hunt down the artist and ask them a particular question. And so I think that's something that students appreciate. It struck a chord with somebody else and they were able to be recognized for what they did. And, it also going back to the quality of artwork being all ranges of it maybe might push those students that maybe didn't put enough time or effort into their work to have it with those students that, did take the time, maybe it'll push them to work a little harder next time. As far as social media goes, I know you being in the high school, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean,
Instagram likes above all else.
oh my gosh, yeah. So I think it's just one of those things that if you're able to share student artwork via social media, that almost speaks louder to them than, on a more global level, rather than just, how many likes did I get, rather than just it being in the school.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And I think it kind of comes back to the point of, searching for that authentic audience, that goes beyond our classroom. Like hanging work on our walls is good, but we can do so much better. Like if you have that display case, which obviously not every art teacher has that opportunity, but if you do, you need to take advantage of it. And then when kids know that they have more of an audience, whether that be, the teachers that are talking to them about the work or just their peers that are seeing it in the halls, I think that's a really good thing for them. And like you said, it really serves as a motivating factor. But also, like you said, the other big motivation is, seeing their work on social media. And I know you use both Twitter and Instagram. How much work do you put out there? Like, do you show a lot of your kids' work on social media sites?
Yeah, I definitely do. For my students, they're not really into Twitter as much as what I am as an educator. It's more for me professionally in a way.
Right.
So my venue for them is using Instagram. And so I actually have a school account that we use, and, students follow, and, it's a big deal if their picture makes it on there. And even students that I don't have, in the art classroom are checking it out. And, let's say I am posting a picture, somebody else will see it and they, tag the other person in it. And so it becomes this big deal. Probably 90% of my students have an Instagram account. So, they want to be the one that, that makes it on there.
Okay, so just kind of a quick aside here. None of my kids use Facebook because that's for old people. But do you feel like Twitter's going that way too?
I kind of do. I mean, there's a few of my students that have Twitter, 7th and 8th graders that have it. But if they have it, they don't use it. They only use it to follow their, Justin Bieber or whoever their
exactly
favorite, so that, I think that's kind of going that way too.
I know. And I feel like it's Instagram and Snapchat now. And I'm afraid I'm getting old. So
we are.
But that's all right. Okay, so anyway, moving on from that, I want to talk kind of about what's happening in the classroom. And, starting with the more talented kids, what are some of your favorite strategies, I guess, for kids that are able to go above and beyond what you're looking for? Like, let's say, for example, you're back in elementary and you're teaching perspective to 4th grade, and this kid can already draw 3-point perspective and these great 2-point city scenes that go back forever and whatever else. Okay, if you have a kid that can kind of go above and beyond, hey, what do you do for those kids that already know the content or already know the concepts that you're teaching?
If they know a concept already, I got to find a way to challenge them. If I am not challenging them, I'm not doing my job. So I think that, for the other day, I had an 8th grader in one of my digital art classes who we were working on a project, and a typical student, it takes him 5 days to finish it. And it took him a day and a half.
Yeah.
So I have all this time and I'm like, oh my gosh. And right now it was just a basic of Photoshop type of thing, trying to get familiar with it. So in a situation like that, when, it's easy for them, they're not being challenged, I turn it around and I try to, make it a teaching moment as far as, okay, can you share with the rest of the class something that you learned or an easier way that you found how to do something rather, different from how I told you how to do it? And kind of make
Hmm.
him the teacher, like he's the expert. And, sometimes peers, that peer to peer teaching moment speaks louder than what I can do. And so I create that opportunity for them. And, so now I still have all this extra time with him. And I ask him what he wants to do. What is something that you think is challenging to you? And maybe he researches it and I find a way to help him with it. Cause, I have the
Hmm.
time to kind of have that one on one time with him. So find something that he's interested in. Let's figure out how to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of speaking about that one-on-one thing, that's a big strategy for me as far as kids who are struggling as well. Like if we start talking about the other end of the spectrum, kids who are really struggling, whether it be with drawing, sculpting, Photoshop, whatever, I've always found that they need a ton of reteaching and usually a lot of encouragement to go
Hmm.
along with it, just because they do get down on themselves when they're struggling. And I know there are a lot of teachers out there just have so many kids that they see in a day, so many classes they have, and they don't have that one-on-one time necessarily with all the other demands of their job. But for you, like what works well for you with kids that are struggling with whatever that concept may be?
Sure. And if you can give that one-on-one time, that's going to be the best thing for them. But that's not ideal in all situations. So for me, it's really about simplifying it and breaking it down. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, for most students, if they're struggling with something, it's usually drawing.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of the basis is what we do.
Hmm.
So, for those students, even if we're not doing a grid type of drawing assignment, maybe I have pre-made grids for them to help them get started.
Right.
Or, maybe we, take the upside down man drawing technique and maybe I actually break down whatever image or they're working from, or we create something that they can reference to in that upside down man method.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, I think it's really important to think about the concept that's being taught. And so, if let's say it's a project about color and the student's really struggling with the drawing portion of it, is it important that he makes the drawing as accurate and perfect as he can? Or, at the end of the day, am I just looking to see that they know and understand the concept of color?
Right.
And so I think at the end of the day, it's looking to see the improvement, no matter how minimal it is, and just to make them feel successful by using some of those small little techniques of simplifying.
Yeah. And, I think, even with those kids who may not, get that end result that you want, they're still kind of meeting the challenge that you put out in front of them.
Mhm.
And I think it kind of goes back to something that Andrew and I talked about on the podcast last week. Andrew used the analogy of weightlifting. Everybody's lifting a different weight, and some kids may be doing these huge exercises and other kids are just doing a little bit, but everybody's challenged. And I think as long as you can find that challenge for each of your kids, that's where they're going to be successful, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then I think this is probably going to be the last question here. And I kind of hinted at this in my introduction, but it's something I kind of want to talk about. The other thing that I'm really interested in is, what about the kid who's both talented and terrible? Okay. And I'm not talking like terrible skill wise, okay, but more behavior wise. Like they can draw, they can create, they can sculpt like nothing else. But, with that originality and that creativity comes with sort of a refusal or a defiance to make the stuff that you want them to make. Hey, where do you go with a kid like that?
About five different kids popped into my mind right there. And, those
Yeah.
stubborn students are
Yeah.
challenging and you don't want to stifle them by any means. But, it can be difficult.
Hmm.
So I think it's sometimes you got to do a little bartering. You got to
Yeah.
find that middle. What can you compromise with? And in situations like that, I'm so open to students. If they want to present something to me, if they say, hey, I'm going to do this, it's still going along with what we're talking about, and
Right.
they can prove that to me, that's great. But kind of my rule of thumb that I go for with my students is, if at any point another student, teacher, or administrator walks into my classroom, that student should be able to fully explain in detail what they are doing. Not just, oh, hey, I'm painting this picture of this shark in a tornado right now. But like, they have to say, this is what I'm doing. This is the learning target. And so if they're not able to do that, then that's the point where, we have to revisit and say, okay, what are you doing here? I gave you this freedom to challenge you, but, take it from there. But
yeah, I think that responsibility needs to be a big part of that as well. But more importantly, did you just drop a Sharknado reference?
I totally did, because it just happened last week.
That's awesome. All right, cool. I think that's a good note to go out on, actually. But all right, well, Abby, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really enjoy talking to you, and you've definitely given us some good insight. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Just one other thing I want to talk about before we close this show out. Abby and I finished by talking about those students that are both talented and terrible, and kind of what we do with them. They have that talent, but don't necessarily fit into your regular curriculum, or they don't want to do things that you're asking them to do. And for me, I think it's kind of a balancing act. And Abby talked about sort of, the negotiation process and letting them do what they can or do what they want to do as long as they can justify it. And I'm fine with that. I always let my kids do their own thing if they can explain the what and the why of what they're proposing, especially if they already know the concepts that I'll be covering. Because it's so much better to let them work through their own thing than forcing them to sit through and give half of an effort on work that they don't want to do. So it really is about finding that balance of what kids want to do versus what you need them to do. And it's very much about being able to adapt and being flexible as an art teacher. Because really, both our talented and our terrible students come with some needs. And those are different, undoubtedly. But it all comes down to this. We, as teachers, have a responsibility to share with each and every one of our students our time, our opinions, and our expertise. And we can't be the only ones. Okay? Kids need that authentic audience that we talked about, the audience that goes beyond the classroom walls. Okay? And it kind of goes back to Westbrook's Painting in the Dark documentary. That authentic audience can take any number of forms, but the things that you do in your classroom inspire students to achieve. And the audience you provide them with encourages them to continue creating and continue persevering. Our ultimate goal, though, what we really want to do is ignite that passion for learning, and all of our students, whether they are talented or terrible. That passion will help them create and reach for a level that's somewhere beyond where they are right now. And we can get them where we want them to be. We just can't expect them to do that in the dark. Art Ed Radio is developed, produced, and supported by the Art of Education with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. If you want to support the show and enjoy what we're doing, please subscribe on iTunes, rate our show, and leave a comment. You can find additional content under the podcast tab on theartofed.com, where we'll have the write-up of this episode with links, quotes, and resources you can use in your classroom. New episodes are released every Tuesday, and I will be back next week with Andrew McCormick talking about the projects that define your art program.